G'day and welcome back to McGrathmatics, Australia's largest YouTube channel. Today for episode 200 and for Year 12's final week of school, we're going to hit pause on the study and we're going to have some fun instead. We're going to do an equations tier list video. Here's how this is going to work. I'm going to run through a few of the more commonly used equations across a variety of HSC courses and we're going to rank them into these tiers. Up the top we got S tier, which is where we're putting the goats, and down the very bottom we have the F tier, where we're going to put the worst things imaginable, such as unskippable YouTube ads and the 2/3 of you that aren't subscribed to the channel. Starting off strong with one of the most commonly used equations in maths, the quadratic formula. If you're ever faced with a quadratic that you're too much of a coward to factorize, this formula is a great option for you. And solving quadratic equations has a stack of real life applications, such as projectile motion. I will have to take some points away from this formula because if you were a real mathematician, you would be solving by completing the square every single time because it's more fun, which would make this formula completely redundant. This is going to land the quadratic formula firmly in the A tier category for me. Up next is the trapezoidal rule. Anytime I tell a senior class that we're going to be approximating the area of a paddock by just pretending it's a trapezium and then saying close enough's good enough, they look at me with genuine complete disgust. In advanced maths, if you're using this formula, it's because you don't know how to actually integrate the boundary function of the area, which in mathematics is considered a pretty beta move. F tier for trapezoidal rule. As the great man Pythagoras once said, every triangle is a love triangle when you love triangles. The Pythagorean formula is an elegant piece of algebra that has applications in almost every area of mathematics. I make sure I teach this one twice to my Year 9 boys so that when they leave school the following year to go and build houses for about 5 decades, I can be pretty confident they'll be gluing wood together at a 90-degree angle. The Pythagorean formula will lose a few points because when you do a bit of research, you discover that Pythagoras himself was actually essentially a cult leader, and religious extremism is not something we take very lightly here at McGrathmatics. As a result, that's going to bring the Pythagorean formula down a few levels and land us in B tier. Have you ever turned a 5-minute drive into a 30-minute adventure to enjoy a bit of real scenery? If so, you'd be a huge fan of the limit definition of the derivative. Because why would you do this when you can do this? How beautiful is that? I appreciate this formula as the starting point for the greatest journey ever taken by man, which is the study of calculus. Shout out to famous Virgin Isaac Newton for laying the groundwork for the most intricate and beautiful system of mathematics. We are all sincerely in your debt. Unfortunately, this equation will have to lose a lot of points because my literal job is to explain this to 16-year-olds who don't know what calculus or limits are, which to be honest kind of feels like teaching a baby to drive a manual car. As a result, derivative lands in C tier for me. The z-score formula is an integral part of any statistical analysis and is the easiest way of determining if you are mathematically below average at something. The simple formula loses points due to its limited applications, and because when I teach this lesson, I'm forced to use the words mu and sigma about a dozen times. And in the current age of TikTok brain rot, this always leads to a pretty grueling hour of education for me personally. For that reason, I can't put this equation any higher than D tier. The blood alcohol content formula is honestly a recipe for disaster. When I show my class the male and female formulae for BAC calculation, someone's usually pretty quick to ask me which formulae should the other 37 genders use. And to this day, I personally haven't found an answer that is either correct or right. We'll also need to take off a lot of points here because I once calculated my BAC as 0.04, but I forgot to carry the 1, so I ended up with a DUI anyway. As a result, we're going to land the BAC formula in E tier. Last but certainly not least is an equation that people in classrooms across the globe are currently pretending to understand. Euler's identity. You're telling me that the magic calculus number to the power of the magic circle number times an imaginary number minus 1 is equal to 0? And we're all just okay with that? Alright, not only is this witchcraft, but it's also absolute mathematical poetry and will likely find its home on my lower back during my midlife crisis, right below the McGrathmatics logo. S tier equation, no further questions.